Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope everything's good wherever you are. Guys, that podcast between Mike Tyson and Jermall Charlo, I am going to make a few videos about it, breaking down some of the things that was said. It was beautiful. Mike Tyson was very frustrated, and he was ranting to Jermall like us fans are ranting. That, he said some beautiful things. He said, I've been calling out Canelo for 5-6 years. And then he said, then Mike Tyson replied to him, fight the Mexican Monster. Fight the next best thing, the Mexican Monster, David Benavidez. And then Jermall Charlo replied, well, David Benavidez is no Mexican monster. He goes, he's no monster. And Mike said that Jermall is the best. He goes, I feel Jermall is the best, but he's got to prove it. He's got to prove he's the best. I don't know whether Mike was just saying that, but Jermall, is not the best. But, he may be the best, but he's got to prove it. There's a lot of guys that sing a lot of praises of Jermall, Lions Only Charlo. But Lions Only Charlo has got to prove himself. He's got to prove himself. David Benavidez, a Mexican monster. Now, Mike Tyson is calling David Benavidez a Mexican monster. He's unproven, Benavidez. We don't know how good he is. He's another guy that's fought nobody throughout his career. He's a guy that, hasn't done much. He's got his fans that think he's something special. But he hasn't fought nobody. Let's be brutally honest. He's a guy that's unproven, that's not been in there with a top tier opposition, David Benavidez. So I think to call him a monster, I think it's a bit premature. He may well be a monster. He just, for me, isn't proven. He hasn't proven himself at any kind of level at this point to be called a monster. But Mike Tyson really put it on Jermall Charlo in that interview. I think Mike Tyson showed his frustration of the current boxing. And Mike Tyson said a beautiful thing. He said that imagine a fight between Jermall Charlo and Errol Spence. And he said that Jermall replied, and this is the stuff about today's boxers. Jermall replied, well, they train together, they're friends. And Mike Tyson said, well, you know what? If we're friends, let's put food on our table together. Let's make bread together. Let's make bread together. And then Mike Tyson named one of his friends that he fought. That he said, you know what? He beat my ass in the amateurs twice. But you know what? We fought to put bread on each other's table, to put food on each other's table. That's what we do. Yeah, if we're friends, let's fight and let's give ourselves a payday. That's what friends do. Do you see the mentality? See, you guys were saying, oh, the mentality. No, the mentality has changed. Nowadays, boxers have a different mentality to the ones. Look, those guys are basically saying that, yeah, we're friends, but let's put that aside and let's put bread on each other's table. And Jermall's, Errol Spencer said that, well, Jermall's my friend, Jermall, but at the end of the day, that's a massive fight. That could be a fight where they could generate 10 mil, like Mike was saying. But that's the kind of cloth Mike was cut from. That's why Mike was Iron Mike Tyson. And everybody loved Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was frustrated. He was angry. Because he was like, yo, man, these guys ain't fighting each other. He goes, yo, look into the camera. Call these people out. Call out Benavidez. And basically, Jermall Charlo said, well, Benavidez is there's no reward. What do I gain? He offers nothing. And Mike Tyson was just like, I ain't about this. He goes, fight the Mexican monster, David Benavidez. I love Mike Tyson's platform because he's giving these guys a platform. He did it with Ryan Garcia. I believe Canelo was on there. Javante was on there. He's a lot of guys. He's giving these guys a platform. He's trying to tell these guys, how it was back in his day. He's trying to, like, some of these guys, like Jermall in that podcast, I actually think, he looked quite bad because Mike was kind of sticking it on him. And the answers that he was giving were kind of like, were like, oh, well, Jermall and Spence train together. They're friends or whatever he said. But Mike's like, you know, the other guy who was with Jermall basically said, Mike, how can you fight your friend? And he goes, you know, I fought my friend. We put bread on each other's table. We provided for each other. If you're my friend, then let's put food on each other's table. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's how boxers should be. Not, oh, you're my friend, and that's one of the biggest fights that possibly could be made, but we're not going to fight because we're friends and we train together. Come on. You know, there's no friends in boxing. What friends? You're my friend? Yeah, let's fight and let's put food on each other's table. You know, that's being friends, right? And Mike was tearing in. He was tearing in because Mike's come from a different era. Mike fought everyone. Mike was Mike. You know, all of you guys love Mike for that reason, because Mike was Mike. You know, and Mike doesn't like it. He doesn't like the current state of boxing. He doesn't like the fact that these guys aren't fighting. He's telling Jermall, fight the Mexican Monster. You know, and he's basically going back to his days and his youth. And what made Iron Mike. He's telling these guys, fight each other. Fight these guys. You know, and we know that Mike's not afraid to let his feelings known. We know Mike Tyson will say it how it is. We know that. Mike Tyson will say it. He don't care whether it's Charlo, Canelo. He doesn't care who's sitting there. You know, Mike will say what he feels. Do you know what I mean? And like, I feel like that's a good platform for these guys. Everyone's been on there. Canelo's been on there. Canelo's the biggest star in boxing today. He's been on there. David Benavidez has been on there. You know, and I know Steven was saying, well, you know, Mike he's out, you know, he's out in another space. He's out in another dimension somewhere, Steven was saying. But Steven, what Mike was saying was right. Mike was putting it on these guys. Mike's saying, listen, you guys have got to start getting in the ring. Stop making these excuses that they were friends. Look at what he said about Jermall and Spence. He goes, he told Jermall, your brother and Spence, that'll be a massive fight. And he replied back with, you know, this, well, they're friends, they train together. And he's like, well, I fought my friend. If we're friends, then let's get together and put food on our table. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. It's about giving the fans what they want. It's about giving the fans good fights. Look, like I said to you, Mike Tyson probably wasn't the best heavyweight of his generation. But Mike Tyson's loved. He was, don't get me wrong, Mike was a unique character. Not everybody can be like Mike Tyson. You know, he was a unique persona, unique character. He was just special in his way. You know, Mike Tyson was just special. You know, people love Mike Tyson. People love Mike Tyson. You know, I have a friend, I remember back in college, and he goes, Mike Tyson, this, that. Like, he used to love him. Like, literally love him. You know? He was loved. But like I said, he wasn't the greatest heavyweight of his generation. Was he? But he was loved. To this day, people talk about Iron Mike. And what these guys don't understand is, yeah, you're not going to have the style. You're not going to have the kind of aura that Mike had. That's one in a... But you've got to, like... What Mike Tyson is saying is right. Because he's going back to an era, a school where losing isn't important. It's about putting on the fight for the fans. We need to get back to that. We need to get past this Floyd Mayweather. Look, what you got to understand is Floyd was an exceptional fighter. Right? Irrespective of all the people that hate on Floyd, Floyd was a one-off. He fought a lot of top guys. He fought all the best guys, but Floyd was just so good. Right? Not everybody can be on that kind of level. So staying undefeated will mean that you guys, if these guys want to stay undefeated, the way they're going to do it is by cherry picking and fighting lower competition. Because if they fight enough tough competition, guys like Charlo, Benavidez, these aren't that great. These aren't Floyd. So they're not going to stay undefeated. And the same with guys like Mike Tyson. Look how great Mike was. But when Mike when you fight the best, even guys like Mike Tyson lose. You know, Sugar Ray Leonard, look how great they were. They lost. Because when you fight the best of your era, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. Floyd fought the best of his era. Good. Even Floyd, like I said, if he had fought anyone and anyone, right, maybe he would have lost. But he even though he fought everyone of his era that he needed to, he picked the right and choose the right time, because that's what you need to do to stay undefeated. Very difficult to stay undefeated if you're fighting top tier competition. Very, very difficult. You have to be something special. And even then, right, there's a lot of controversy around the fights. There's going to be someone that has your number. Always. Look, how many fighters in the history, top fighters that we know, stay undefeated? Someone always, they always get beat. They always get beat. Like, I can think of Floyd. I can think of Calzaghe. But even Floyd had controversial wins. Calzaghe had controversial wins. What I'm saying is, like, it's very difficult to stay undefeated, man. Andre Ward was undefeated. But again, like, when you look at Andre Ward's resume, you know, it's not stellar resume. He's had a good run at once. But who was he really fought? That's a Hall of Famer. You know? So the point I'm trying to make is it's very hard to stay undefeated. And Ward never had that many. He's had about 30 fights, 32 fights. You know? So the point I'm trying to make is we need to get away from this staying undefeated. Very few fighters stay undefeated. You know, it just doesn't. And like I said, if you're going to look to stay undefeated, the way you're going to do it is by cherry picking. Look, Jermall Charlo hasn't even fought that great competition. And even him has had a controversial fight in Korobov. People thought he lost. And he hasn't even fought like top tier competition. So this is what I'm trying to say. Staying undefeated is overrated. I don't think the fans really care if you stay undefeated. And generally, a lot of the undefeated guys that stay undefeated, the fans are always saying, oh, well, he's a cherry pick and he fought nobody and he did. Like, cut that out. But in terms of Mike Tyson saying, you know, Jermall Charlo needs to fight David Benavidez, I'm all for that. I'll be all over that fight. Jermall Charlo v. David Benavidez is a great fight. And by the way, I know all of you guys are going to jump and David Benavidez knocks him out. I beg to differ. I beg to differ. That's a great fight. That's a great fight. I'm not convinced like you guys are with David Benavidez. I'm telling you now, I'm not convinced. Until David Benavidez starts proving it against the top tier competition, I'm not convinced. You know, that's just my opinion. But if he proves it against top tier competition, like a Charlo, like a Plant, then maybe I'll start jumping onto his bandwagon. But until then, I don't think I'm going to be jumping onto his bandwagon. Because like I said, you know, he's not fought the best. You know, he's not fought the best. So that's my opinion on Benavidez, Charlo, Mike Tyson. But yeah, I think Jermall Charlo needs to fight the Mexican Monster, which is David Benavidez. Leave your thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.